welcome to the link this week. And last week, the final investment decision was publicly signed. And that we're talking about oil and gas. And that means the country can now start experiencing gas development and investment so that oil can start to flow in about 4 years or thereabout, 3-4 years. And tonight we are continuing to talk about oil and gas, but again, taxes. I want to introduce my guest who has been here before recently. Speaking about oil, she's going to share her expertise for many Ugandans who want to know about oil and tax. Pamella, welcome. She's Pamella Natamba, Head of Oil and Gas Division, PwC. Welcome again.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. People must be saying, I have seen her recently. Oh, yeah. Knowledge. We know that the last time you were here, Pamella, we talked about withholding tax in as far as oil is concerned. And this was pertaining to Ugandan investors, tier 2, tier 3, and so on. Now we want to talk about two aspects: income tax, the Income Tax Amendment Bill or Act, and the Public Finance Bill. Then we shall look at the third issue. Let's talk about income tax bill. Recently, the law was amended in terms of oil. What happened?
Thank you, Sam. So you correctly talked about the FID that was announced last week. And before we got to that point of FID, there were certain aspects of the regulatory environment that needed to be addressed.
Absolutely.
One of those aspects was the East African Crude Oil Pipeline Bill, which we discussed the last time that I was here, as you rightly said. Yeah. And then there were two other bills, the Income Tax Amendment Bill and the Public Finance Management Bill. So the Income Tax Amendment Bill is a bill that amends or provides for amendments to the existing Income Tax Act.
Okay.
This particular bill was for the oil and gas sector. And it was actually passed by Parliament, and it should become an act as soon as it's signed by the President. So we have not yet seen the signed copy. Okay. We do believe it's going to be out soon because we don't expect any additional changes. So that bill has made specific provisions, but one of them, which is very interesting, is it introduces a windfall tax. Okay,
windfall.
Yes. So the windfall tax here is to the licensees. And the licensees, we mean the oil companies, for example, that signed petroleum sharing agreements, have been exploring oil in Uganda and now getting to the point of production. So Total Energies, CNOOC, and also our own Uganda National Oil Company is one of the licensees. What this bill says is, for as long as you earn windfall, as long as you earn revenues in excess of a certain amount, you pay windfall tax. I'll explain how that works. Yeah. You have oil prices, international oil prices, as we all keep monitoring what's happening on the global scene. Yeah. So the bill says that if the oil price, the international oil price, reaches $75 per barrel, or exceeds $75 per barrel, the expectation is that the oil companies should pay an extra tax over and above the usual 30%, which is the corporate tax for companies that are operating in our economy in Uganda. Yeah. So there's an additional 15 expected to be paid. Should we get to that point where we are selling oil and the price for oil exceeds $75 per barrel. Okay. Yes. So the cutoff mark is $75 per barrel. Yes. That means that if we are doing oil now, we will be paying. They will be paying windfall tax because now it's at around 89. Yeah. How much are they going to pay? How much would they pay in windfall? The companies to government. Companies. Yes. So the way it's going to work is that for every single day in a year, that where the price hits 75 or exceeds 75, you pay tax in relation to that day. Okay. So we will apportion, or they will apportion, the oil companies will apportion. So if it's maybe 30 days in a year where the price was 75 or exceeded 75, over the total number of days in a year, then multiply that by the income So you are apportioning your income on the basis of the number of days. Already you pay 30% on what we call chargeable income or taxable income,
which is now the usual tax.
which is your profits adjusted for any expenses that are deductible for tax, and then you pay 30%.
Okay.
So that very base that you used to pay 30% is going to be your base for the 15% additional tax as windfall tax.
Okay.
But apportioned to the number of days during which your price was 75 or more.
So the 15 is all in all the days, not on one day. 15% windfall tax is on all the days oil was above 75.
Correct.
Not every day 15%.
Not every day. So you compute this tax at the end of the year.
Okay.
So as you come to the end of the year, you're able to look back and calculate the number of days where the oil price was in excess of the 75, and then use that to apportion your 15% for the entire year's chargeable income.
Okay,
Yeah.
very interesting. I need to get a pen and paper and come back to that. Let's turn to the Public Finance Bill, also amended.
Yes.
Public finance regulates government institutions' expenditures and behavior,
Yes.
if I'm right. So what change in the Public Finance Management Bill that we should know concerning oil?
Okay. So I'll first mention that we have a Public Finance Management Act that was enacted in 2015.
Yeah.
And that act is to provide, like you've said, it regulates public finances.
Yeah.
Now, from an oil perspective, that act particularly introduced a number of aspects. One was the Petroleum Fund.
Okay.
Two was the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve.
Yes, the reserve and the fund.
Yes, and I'll explain how those work. And three, it also brought into place the Investment Advisory Committee for, for the petroleum funds.
Yes.
So the idea was the petroleum revenues all go into the petroleum fund.
Yes.
From the petroleum fund, we determine how much of that money goes to the consolidated fund
to be spent,
which is the fund where we draw all expenditure, whether it's to finance, security, finance,
salaries,
education sector, all those things. Then the other balance goes to the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve.
Okay, just slow there. So the fund holds the money.
Yes.
Then we get some of it and use it to run the country.
Yes.
Then the other half goes to the reserve fund. Okay, yes. I get it.
So now that the money that goes to the reserve fund is supposed to be used to, one, develop the sector further, the infrastructure that is required.
Okay.
And then, once that is done, if there's a surplus, we can think about what other sector we want to support.
All right.
So that is how the Act of 2015 works. Now, this amendment bill is saying, wait a minute, we have the Uganda National Oil Company, which is acting on behalf of government. It has contractual obligations under different contracts with Total Energies, with CNOC. So we need to understand.
It's a shareholder in all these pipeline and everywhere.
Yes.
Those obligations.
So how do you fund those obligations? The normal process would be UNOC should be able to go through the process of going through Parliament, getting approval so that they can access money from the consolidated fund and then start to spend. But this is a sector where things are happening quickly. You're not going to wait if the approval hasn't yet come through from Parliament to get to those funds. So what the bill is saying is that when UNOC collects proceeds from the sale of crude oil, they will first take off money to meet those obligations, and then the balance is what they will remit to the petroleum fund.
Otherwise, under normal circumstances, they should have given the money, all of it,
into the petroleum fund.
Okay. So now they pay off the obligations, then the balance
is what they will put.
But there's a worry. Suppose they take off too much. How do we know they take our money?
Yeah, okay. The bill has actually also provided for that. So they are supposed to have work plans and budgets ahead of time, and those should be approved, pre-approved. So the difference is, rather than going to seek approval to get money, here you already have your budgets and plans pre-approved. The moment the money comes in, you spend it on the basis of that budget, and then the balance is what you put into the fund.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Finally, Pam, how does generally the country earn money? I know it's not only taxes, where we're going to earn, as a government, earn money from oil.
Yes.
Ugandans need to know centers of how our money, where is it going to come from? You can explain that.
Okay, so the bill talks about petroleum revenues going into the fund, the petroleum fund, and it has specifically defined what those petroleum revenues are. So you have, you've talked about taxes.
Yes.
The other day we were discussing taxes. So there are different taxes that are going to be generated. It's
by
corporate
URA.
tax. Yes, it's the windfall tax we've just been talking about, VAT and all those taxes. Secondly, you have the proceeds that are coming from the sale of the crude oil.
Okay.
So whatever oil you sell, the money that comes to us goes into that
So
fund.
the tax is on the companies playing.
Yes, so the tax is on the different companies playing in the sector. The proceeds is from the sale of crude oil. We have things like royalties. For every production, for every barrel that is produced, there's a certain percentage that goes to the government as a royalty.
Okay.
We have things like signature bonuses that are paid upon signing of the production sharing agreements. So all that revenue is what is going to go into the petroleum fund. And what this act is saying, or this law is saying, is that of all that revenue, at least the proceeds that are going to be coming from the sale of the crude oil should be retained by the national oil company to then use that to meet their contractual obligations.
Okay, thank you, Pam. It seems to me that now we may earn taxes only, mainly in the development stage. Am I right?
In the development stage,
mainly taxes.
Mainly taxes, yes, because we haven't yet started production to start to realize proceeds, which will come through the sale of the crude oil.
Okay.
So at this point in time, we have majorly the taxes. Also, the royalties come when you start production.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much, Pam. Pamella Natamba, Head of Oil and Gas Division, PwC Uganda. We will continue speaking about oil. There are things you need to know. Some of them may sound complicated here. Go back and watch this video. It's going to be uploaded on YouTube once it runs. Once it runs. After now, you will find it later on once the bulletin is over. So review it again slowly, because you need to know, especially if you are in business. But even those in schools, we are educating you here very, very much about oil, a point at a time. We've been talking about tax. I'll bring back Pamella here to speak to us more about issues of taxation and oil. That was the link. Thank you for joining us tonight.